The sun was just beginning to sink when I pulled into the hotel parking lot in San Diego. After 8 hours on the road, I was exhausted, but it didn't matter. In the passenger seat sat a small velvet box, my late husband's cufflinks polished and nestled in blue satin, and an envelope with a $10,000 cashier's check. It was supposed to be my wedding gift to Mason, a gesture of support, of love, of family. I sat in the car a moment, smoothing the creases in my blouse, willing the stiffness out of my legs. My hand trembled as I picked up my phone. My son's name blinked on the screen. He answered on the second ring, his voice barely audible over what sounded like clinking glasses and distant chatter. "Hey, Mom," he said, distracted. "What's up?" "I just arrived," I said brightly. "The hotel's lovely. What time should I be at the venue tomorrow? I've got your dad's cufflinks." There was a pause and then a short laugh. "Oh, we had it yesterday." I blinked. "You what?" "The wedding," he said. "We had it yesterday, just family." I sat there stunned. The words didn't register all at once. Mason, I thought, it was small, you know. We just kept it simple. Belle's parents flew in early, and things just worked out that way. I stared out at the fountain in front of the hotel entrance, watching strangers pose for photos, arms around each other. My own son had gotten married without me. I'd paid for the dress, the flowers, the band, every invoice, every signature, every email. It was me. But I wasn't family. I didn't say another word, just ended the call. The velvet box felt heavier than it should have. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in the stiff hotel bed, shoes still on, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how I'd ended up on the outside of a wedding I'd practically built from the ground up. I'd pictured it all more times than I'd admit. Mason would see me walk in. His face would light up. He'd introduce me to everyone with pride, maybe even hug me like he did when he was little. "This is my mom," I imagined him saying. None of this would have been possible without her. But that version of the day didn't exist. I wasn't there. I wasn't even thought of. I got up and walked to the window, pulling back the curtain. Somewhere in the city, my son had said vows, cut cake, danced with someone, and I was here, 10 floors up, a spectator with no ticket. The cufflinks were still in their box. I hadn't touched them since placing them in the passenger seat. I looked at them now, untouched on the dresser, gleaming under the cheap lamp. My fingers hesitated before closing the box again. I could almost hear Warren's voice in my head, "Family first, even when it hurts." He'd said that so many times. After his sister stopped calling, after Mason had dropped out and moved in with Belle, after every sharp word we swallowed for the sake of keeping the peace, even when it hurts. But this wasn't hurt. This was something else. This was knowing your love had been received, used, and discarded. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe through the shaking. I had always given Mason room. I never cried, never demanded. I trusted that being his mother would be enough to keep me close. It wasn't. And as I stared at the gift he'd never opened, I knew something inside me had shifted. I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after this. I reached for my purse and opened the envelope, my eyes landing on the check. Back in Modesto, I unpacked slowly. My bag lay half open on the couch while I stood at the kitchen counter with my laptop, staring at the folder marked Mason and Belle, wedding. I had saved every invoice, every transfer confirmation, every email. I clicked through the receipts like I was flipping pages of a diary I no longer recognized. $5,000 deposit for the venue, my card. $300 to the caterer in San Diego, my account. $2,400 for Belle's dress, paid through my bank under my name. Dozens more, florals, DJ, even monogrammed napkins. Each line item was a piece of my trust, my belief that I was building something with him, for him, that I still mattered. My fingers hesitated before opening Instagram. I hadn't wanted to look, but part of me needed to see what I'd missed. I searched Belle's profile first. It was full of glossy photos, sunlit bouquets, first dances, champagne toasts. And then there was Mason, standing under an arch of eucalyptus and roses I had ordered, holding a glass, smiling. One caption stopped me cold. "All thanks to my side of the family for making this dream day possible." My breath caught. I scrolled faster. Dad surprised us with this venue, beyond grateful. Her father? That venue had my signature, my deposit, my sacrifice. There were no mentions of me, not one photo, not even in the background. I closed the laptop slowly, as if that might soften the blow. But the sting was already there. This wasn't just forgetting to thank me. It was erasing me, rewriting the story with someone else as the provider. The cufflinks were still in my purse. I hadn't been able to put them away. I slid them onto the counter now next to the receipts. My husband's legacy, my love, his memory, all swallowed by a son who didn't think I deserved a seat at his wedding, but had no problem letting others take credit for what I gave. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen. Mason's number still saved under my boy. The signs had been there, hadn't they? I sat in my kitchen, the house quiet around me, thinking back to the months leading up to the wedding. I'd brushed off so many things then. Brushed off Belle's clipped tone on the phone, the way she never replied to my texts without hours, sometimes days of silence. I told myself she was busy. Planning a wedding was stressful. I gave grace. I always gave grace. But now, in the silence of my own home, the memories played louder. There was that brunch at the cafe in March. I had offered to pay for the venue deposit, sliding the email across the table for them to review. Belle had barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, that's sweet," she said, and then to Mason with a smile too sharp. "Let's not make your mom feel too out of place at the wedding." I'd laughed nervously, tried to joke back, but the words had stuck. Out of place. She'd said it like a joke, but I heard it now for what it was. I wasn't supposed to be there. Every polite smile, every "we'll keep you posted," every time they forgot to loop me in on planning updates, it all made sense now. I wasn't overlooked. I was pushed aside. And Mason, he let it happen. Or maybe he didn't see it, or maybe he agreed. That's what cut the deepest, that he knew how much I was giving, how hard I was trying to stay respectful, supportive, non-intrusive, that I was writing checks while they were writing me out of the picture. I looked at the photos again, the captions, the guest list. I never saw my name. I wasn't mentioned once. I hadn't just missed the wedding. I'd never been wanted there to begin with. The realization settled heavy in my chest. I felt like a stranger to my own child, a silent benefactor thanked behind closed doors, if at all, but never embraced in public. A week passed before Mason's name flashed across my phone again. I almost didn't pick up. When I finally slid my thumb over the screen, his voice came through warm, rehearsed, like nothing had happened. "Hey, Mom, we're in the middle of finalizing the house. Just a few things to wrap up. We assumed you'd support the next step, too. Help with the down payment like you did with the wedding." He said it so easily, as though generosity were an obligation. My throat tightened. "Let me think about it," I managed. My voice sounded calm, but my fingers dug into the armrest of my chair. "That would be great," he replied quickly, relief rushing into his tone. "We're hoping to close by the end of the month. Belle's parents already committed on their side." We said goodbye, and I sat there for a long time, staring at the muted television. The check for $10,000 still lay on my kitchen counter, untouched, a reminder of promises already broken. Later that night, unable to shake a gnawing feeling, I logged into my email. A subject line caught my eye: mortgage application confirmation. My heart thudded as I opened it. There it was, my full name typed neatly beside his and Belle's on a digital form, co-signer. No call, no request, no signature from me, just assumption. I scrolled through the attached documents, my pulse hammering. He'd already sent the lender my contact information, my social security number, everything, from an old pre-approval we'd done years back when he first thought about buying. A cold steadiness spread through me. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was entitlement. The line between mother and bank account had been crossed so completely that he no longer saw it. I closed the laptop slowly and pushed it away. The cufflinks glimmered faintly under the kitchen light, and for the first time since Warren's funeral, I felt something harder than grief settle in my chest. I reached for my phone and opened my banking app, my thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry either. There was no heartbreak left to spill, just a slow, steady resolve. At dawn, I opened my laptop. The joint savings account Mason and I had opened years ago, back when he was still in college, still asking me for textbook money, still calling just to say hi. It was still active. It only took 3 clicks to remove my name. No warning, no conversation. Next, I found the check, the one I'd written just before the drive to San Diego, $10,000. I slid it through the shredder in one smooth motion. Then came the call to the bank. I kept my voice level as I explained that I had not, in fact, agreed to co-sign anything. The woman on the line confirmed what I feared. He had used old authorization, but she also confirmed what I needed to hear. it could be undone. I revoked it officially, legally, irrevocably. Each step was silent, deliberate. I didn't call Mason. I didn't text. I didn't explain because I finally understood explanations were what they expected. An apology for my discomfort. A soft voice. A polite refusal. Something they could argue against. But action. Quiet, firm, final action, but they couldn't spin that. I made a final note to myself. No more shared anything. No more accounts. No more gray areas. The kitchen felt colder that morning, but also cleaner somehow. I made coffee and drank it standing up, staring out the window as the sky shifted from slate to pale gold. Outside, my neighbor's grandson was tossing a football in the yard. Laughter echoed through the air. I remembered Mason at that age. The scraped knees, the bedtime stories, the way he used to reach for my hand in a crowd. But that boy was gone. What remained was mine now. My house, my peace, my name. And if they wanted access again, they'd find the doors quietly closed. 2 days after I closed the account, a notification flashed across my phone. Mason had tagged me in a post. I opened it without thinking and was met with a glossy photo of him and Belle in front of a half-finished house, arms around each other, grinning as if the world owed them a future. The caption read, "Unexpected delays. Help us furnish our dream home. Any support means the world. Family first." Beneath it, a fundraiser link. My name sat right there, tagged with a tiny heart emoji, as though my approval were guaranteed. I stared at it for a long time. Then I tapped the 3 dots, removed my tag, and closed the app. I didn't comment, I didn't share, I didn't send a private message. Silence, I was learning, could be its own boundary. In the group text with my cousins, a new message popped up. Someone had forwarded Mason's post with a cheerful, "Let's all pitch in." I didn't reply. The bubbles moved, more messages rolling in, people talking about what a beautiful couple they were, how excited they must be to start their life together. Not a word about the wedding, not a word about who had already paid for it. I set the phone face down on the table and let the room go still around me. My small home was exactly as I had made it, clean, quiet, and entirely mine. No mortgage, no hidden debts, no one else's fingerprints on my walls. The couch was worn but comfortable. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee. I felt no shame in any of it. The life I'd built on my own terms suddenly seemed like a kind of wealth they couldn't understand. Through the window, I watched a breeze stir the zinnias in the yard. Their bright heads bobbed in unison, unbothered, rooted. I stood there until the phone stopped buzzing, until the world outside my little house faded back to its own noise. The knock came just after noon. I wasn't expecting anyone, but something about the rhythm, polite, deliberate, made me set my book down and answer without hesitation. Standing on my porch was a man in a crisp button-down shirt and tired eyes. I recognized him immediately from a photo Belle had once shown me, her father, Gerald. "Mrs. Caldra?" he asked. "I hope I'm not intruding." I nodded slowly. "That depends on why you're here." He exhaled, almost in relief. "I thought it was time we met properly. I wanted to apologize. I didn't realize until recently you weren't at the wedding." My hand gripped the doorframe. He caught my silence and continued, voice lowered. "Mason told us you were traveling abroad, that you couldn't make it. My wife and I assumed you'd sent your blessings from afar." I said nothing. What was there to say? He stepped back slightly, ashamed. "I only found out the truth when I asked Belle about the check you gave them last year. I was confused because Mason always insisted they paid for everything themselves. The lie sat heavy between us, but I didn't flinch." "I'm sorry," Gerald said again, more quietly. "You should have been there." I pushed the screen door open wider. "Come in, I have coffee." He entered, cautious but respectful, and took a seat at the table while I poured 2 mugs. We didn't speak for a while, not about Mason, not about Belle. He looked around at the modest kitchen, the sun coming in through the blinds, the worn but polished wood of the table. "You raised a man," he said finally, but he became someone else. I sipped my coffee and let the words settle. The email arrived late that night, the subject line blank. I knew it was from him before opening it. Mason's words spilled across the screen in long, careful paragraphs, each one trying to smooth over what couldn't be undone. "We didn't think it was a big deal," he wrote. "It was more intimate this way. You know how Belle's family is. We didn't want you to feel uncomfortable." Another line, "You always support me. You've always understood me. I thought you'd understand this, too." He wrapped his explanations in nostalgia, reminding me of baseball games I'd driven him to, science fairs I'd stayed up all night helping with. It was a strange mix of apology and expectation, as if naming my sacrifices would erase the latest one. I read it twice, the cursor blinking at the end. My hands hovered over the keyboard, but no words came. Finally, I typed a single sentence. "You used to have a mother. Now you have your choices." I hit send. No greeting, no signature, just the truth, stark and cold like a door closing. I stood and walked to the safe where the heirloom jewelry waited. I lifted the velvet box, felt the weight of it in my palms, the same box I had driven hundreds of miles to deliver. It was a symbol of a promise that no longer existed. I set it back down deeper inside the safe, behind folders and papers. He would not have it, not now, maybe not ever. Outside, the night air pressed against the windows, heavy and still. I shut the safe, turned the lock, and exhaled, feeling a space open up where anger had been. The mornings feel different now, not louder or busier, just mine. I pull on my gloves and head out to the backyard, where the soil is warm and forgiving. The first row of zinnias is already pushing through, bright green against the mulch. I press a new seedling into place, patting the dirt like it's something sacred. Maybe it is. I spend hours here in the quiet. I've repainted the fence, pulled the weeds, added a small bench under the shade tree. It's not about transforming the space. It's about tending to what's mine. A few days ago, I dropped off a box of books at the local library. Some from when Mason was little, others I'd collected over the years. I didn't need a plaque or a name on the donation list, just the feeling of release. On Thursdays, I take a watercolor class at the community center. It's mostly women like me, tired of being needed, finally choosing to create. I painted a lemon once and laughed to myself, thinking how bitter and bright things can be at the same time. Today, I opened the mailbox to find a card. Gerald's handwriting, neat, deliberate. Inside, "Thank you for the coffee. I had no idea. I'm sorry for what they did." I folded it carefully and placed it in the kitchen drawer, not because I needed to remember it, but because some truths deserve a resting place. There's still no word from Mason, no calls, no visits. But I don't check my phone the way I used to. The silence used to ache. Now it breathes. The cufflinks are still in the safe. The envelope is sealed. I brew my coffee, step outside, and water the garden before the sun rises too high. The zinnias are taller now, bold pinks and reds, reaching for something they don't have to explain. I carry my brush and sketchbook to the bench, sit down, and paint the sky just as it is, unapologetically wide. Tomorrow, I'll visit the travel office down the street. I've been thinking about taking a trip, somewhere quiet, maybe Oregon or Maine, somewhere with cliffs and sea spray, where the air smells like salt and second chances. I'm not running away. I'm just moving towards something that's finally mine. Sometimes, I still catch glimpses of the past, the way Mason laughed when he got his first bike, the day he graduated high school, Warren's hand warm on my shoulder as we clapped in the crowd. Those memories aren't poisoned. They're part of what shaped me, even if the people in them changed. I've learned that love doesn't vanish when it's unreturned. It just transforms. It finds new soil. The other morning I ran into Gerald again at the farmer's market. He spotted me near the stall with the homemade jams. "Brittany," he said with a small nod, "how's the garden?" "Blooming," I told him. "Yours?" "Trying," he said, smiling faintly. "Some things take longer to grow." We didn't mention our children. We didn't need to. He bought me a jar of orange marmalade and said it was the least he could do for the coffee. I thanked him, and when we parted, it wasn't awkward. It was human. I drove home with the windows down, the wind warm on my skin, and realized I didn't feel hollow anymore. That night, as the sun slipped behind the fence, I made a simple dinner, roasted vegetables, a glass of white wine, and sat outside to eat. The garden hummed softly around me, alive and forgiving. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been, the mother who waited for phone calls, the woman who paid for a wedding she wasn't invited to, the widow who forgot how to rest. And then I thought about the woman I was now, still tender, still learning, but whole. When the stars began to appear, I closed my eyes and whispered a quiet thank you, to Warren, to time, to the hard lessons that finally gave me peace. Inside, the phone lit up once, a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart skipped, thinking it might be Mason, but it wasn't. Just a message from the airline confirming my booking, Portland next week. I smiled, finished my wine, and watched the sky deepen to indigo. Life, I've realized, doesn't always give you closure neatly wrapped. Sometimes it just gives you a quiet morning, a patch of soil, and the choice to start again. And that's enough.